In the last unit, we learned about these two different arms of the kidney, the first of which regulates concentration, and the other one which regulates volume. And now let's go a little more in depth into this first one, the one that reacts faster and is more sensitive. So the overall concept here is that the kidney first wants to sense changes in concentration, and then it wants to correct those changes in concentration. So where does the body sense the concentration change? Well, that actually happens in this organ here. Do you know what this is? This is a brain. And the part of the brain that senses changes in concentration is somewhere around here, and it's called the hypothalamus. Now, it might seem weird to you that it's the brain that's sensing changes in concentration, because all this time we've been talking about kidneys, but it turns out that the brain talks to the kidneys, and the way it does that we'll describe in a second. So how exactly does this hypothalamus sense changes in concentration? Well, it turns out you have special cells in the hypothalamus that are called Osmo Receptors. Now, osmo should probably make you think of osmolarity, and receptor means that it's stimulated by those changes in osmolarity. And the way it works is just the usual chemistry. So this osmoreceptor, like any cell, has some solutes dissolved inside it, and in the extracellular fluid there are some solutes as well. But if the amount of solutes in the extracellular fluid suddenly increases, what do we get? We get a shift of water out of the cell, so that the cell actually shrinks a little bit. And the cell senses that shrinking, and as a result, it sends out a signal that says our osmolarity has gone up. And what form is that signal? Well, these osmoreceptors are actually neurons, so we can draw a little axon coming out of this guy. And so the signal it sends out is actually a neuronal impulse. Now, something that's pretty cool about this is that the brain is really delicate. So normally you want to protect the brain from these changes in concentration. So in most parts of the brain, you have something called the blood-brain barrier, which means that if you have a blood vessel running through the brain, and then you have some brain cells over here, what you have is a very tight barrier here between the blood vessel and the brain parenchyma. And one of the results of that is that if you have a high concentration of solutes here in the blood, it's going to be very slow to equalize across this blood-brain barrier. So the concentration here among the brain cells is not going to increase too quickly or too much. And so that protects these brain cells from rises in concentration. But if we had this same thing over here around our osmoreceptors, if you had a tight blood-brain barrier here, then if we had an increase in concentration in solutes in the extracellular fluid, it would be slow to equalize here, and so the cell would be slow to sense it. But we know that this sensing arm is not slow, it's actually incredibly rapid. So what's going on here? Well, what's going on is that these osmoreceptors are in one of the few parts of the brain that actually does not have a blood-brain barrier. So actually the capillaries here in this part of the brain are leaky, just like they are in most parts of the body, so that if you have an increase or a decrease in concentration here in these blood vessels, it'll very quickly equalize with this interstitial fluid so that these osmoreceptors can very quickly sense it.